about the super secret PLTR then, Morgan?
So PLTR recently did a video on Black Sky calling it the Palantir of space. And they build the world's leading software for data-driven decisions and operations. So they basically take all the data from whoever they're contracted to, companies, and make sense of it all. So obviously, we see on the news all the time with these terrorist attacks and so on, and it's quite hard to alert the correct authorities. So what Palantir do is they link all the dots together. So if you use an example, hypothetically speaking, that individual might take a one-way ticket to a country. The second, he could buy materials for, let's say, an explosive. Third, he might get a ticket to a theme park. And the fourth, he's spotted with a CCTV taking pictures or videos of a crowd. Now, without Palantir, that might not raise suspicion, but link all those together, that's where Palantir comes in, and they make a data-driven decision through that and say, well, all these together are very suspicious, and then they raise, obviously, the concern to the authorities, and from there, that's where the action's taking place. Essentially.
Yeah, that's it. It's quite an interesting thing, really, because for a company which have got so big, they've got so much hype around them, they are quite secretive, obviously, because of the nature of their things. And I think it's one of those similar to Dark Sky and a few others, where if they were to basically make everything public, there'd probably be a huge outcry of, hang on, you're spying on us, how much data are you collecting, things like that. Obviously we've got GDPR over here. Obviously I'm pretty sure GDPR doesn't come over the Terrorism Act, but then you've got to find a line where you don't know who is a terrorist and things like that. So I think that's where PLTR come in. And especially for a company that big to not really disclose what they're doing, but apart from just their clients. So obviously the NSA, CIA, they got huge government contracts. And like it was looking at the US government spent 90 billion on software solutions. Yeah. So obviously that's a huge chunk of the market that Palantir can get involved in, and they have got involved in it through a large number of government agencies.
Yeah, well, the FDA being one, which was I think in December, which was a 3-year contract, which was I think 44 million. And then obviously the continuation, I think, of the army, which was worth, I think it was a huge number, which was just, I think, under $500 million. Yeah. But it's not just America, though. It's obviously worldwide. Obviously, for me and Sam, who are UK based, they had a new contract with the NHS, which is to track COVID infections, to boost healthcare resources in emerging hotspots and divert patients to the most effective facilities. So, you know, when you're looking at contracts, they've got the huge names, which is the ideal situation for someone who's got shares in the company.
Yeah. What's positive about them as well is obviously you touched on the army contracts and the government contracts. I think the army contract in particular is essentially for 1 year, and then they had the option to extend it for 3 years. So far, they've extended it into the second year. Yeah. So obviously that's a good sign that whatever they're doing is working and whatever they're doing is valuable. Which obviously is a great sign for investors.
And you also hear from within the industry too that their product does work. Like I actually know a couple of people who are using the product. I can't say where they're from, but I know a couple of people who are using it, and I hear nothing but positive things about it. You know, they're working in actual data jobs, data related work, and they say like it absolutely adds so much value to their work. So, I mean, if they're saying that, to me, those are people who I know really know their stuff. And, you know, they're looking at this product and going, this is the real deal. I mean, why wouldn't you want to hold shares?
Yeah. My only thing on that is, what do you mean by data? What's that?
So I know that Palantir does not actually host any of the data themselves.
Oh, data.
You mean data. Sorry, Australian accent. Yeah, but that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they are a really good company. I was trying to have a look at, basically, obviously there's so much hype behind them.
Well,
Yeah,
Ark
this is the thing. It is
Ark Invest
very
being
hyped
one.
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
You just have to look at the investors, obviously, with Ark Invest. Kathy Woods has not stopped talking about Palantir. And then obviously, if you look at the board, the co-founder, which is Peter Thiel, is also the co-founder of PayPal, small company.
Yeah.
So these are
You might know
huge
'em.
names. Yeah.
What they've said as well is that they've changed as well the way they operate. Originally, it was very much they were just software engineers. Everyone who worked for them was sort of software engineers, programmers, and things like that. And they had no sort of sales team or anything like that. And over the past few years, they've invested in their sales team. And they've just reaped the benefits of that. Obviously, there are so many new contracts now. It's just ridiculous.
Go up year by year.
Because people have been able to see, obviously, what they're working on, how they can apply it through their sales team, is really the whole reason behind their growth. I did try to have a look at the negatives, basically, of Palantir, which obviously the big one is the drop. So obviously it dropped from $45 a share to about $23 a share, and obviously continues to fall a bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the lockup period finished, I think, a few weeks ago. So obviously allowing insiders to sell obviously doesn't help the price. I think it's about 112 million shares were sold from insiders. But along with that, obviously these current market conditions, as of this date, obviously it's so volatile, and we've seen a catastrophic drop in certain stocks, and not necessarily just little penny stocks, some big names. So currently with the price, I think they're hovering around, was it 21, 22?
Yeah, I think it's 21.
It's difficult to say whether you try to get in sub 20 or how you play this. For me, looking at it, once this volatility stops in the market in a few weeks' time, I can see sort of a 2x, round 50, 45, 50. And then I think it's going to be a long-term hold from there.
I've seen valuations all the way up to $400. Like it's just bonkers.
I don't think we can say 400 at this stage, but definitely it's a long-term hold though. I mean, if you look at Palantir themselves, they've been in business for 17 years already, right? The fact that they're in this high growth phase right now, that carries some risks as well. They are I think they're an old company by, I guess, Silicon Valley terms. They are quite an old company, but they're growing like a startup. At this rate anyway. So that comes with some pressure. And I think that also comes with how do you, there's some questions like, how do you actually scale your product? Because right now, the way that they actually, roll out this product with other companies, let's say, is they send engineers and they physically go there and they actually sort things out for them. It's not really necessarily a plug and play product. They have to actually spend time, and there's man resources, and there's a lot that goes into it. So that affects their profit margins, that affects how fast they can grow, how fast they can scale. I think,
it's a growth play.
You got to wait quite a while for this to actually stabilize, I think.
The only con in this would be similar to Black Sky, with obviously being watched. For me, if I went on holiday, they would know if I booked that flight where I'm staying. But at the same time, would you rather that or these terrorist attacks happen and obviously saving thousands of lives using Palantir?
My life isn't quite that interesting to probably warrant suspicion, which I imagine that a lot probably aren't.
But I imagine it's not too bad for Palantir, because they're not actually hosting the data themselves, so it's technically not their problem.
Which is true.
But obviously, that whenever anyone's criticized for it, their name's going to be dragged in with it, because obviously they're the ones providing the solution. But a lot of the negatives seems to be around their valuation. Obviously, for a company which is consistently loss-making, as a lot of tech companies are, they've got a price-to-sale ratio of 28.3. Now, a lot of companies obviously they're a SaaS company, so software as a solution. which always attract the highest multipliers for any sort of valuation. But that is a very, very high ratio, which you don't tend to see. I mean, if you're going to see it on anyone, it's going to be a software company, but it's still a very high ratio. And that's where a lot of the negatives seem to come in about Palantir. And like, if you were to remove that ratio, you could see it could just be a $12 stock. But
Yeah,
what they're saying is, obviously, because it's a tech company, it's very hard to go on valuation because it is so many hypotheticals. You don't know how they're going to perform. They're still growing rapidly, even though they've been in business obviously 17 years. This seems to be like the previous sort of 3 to 5 years have been the biggest years in terms of growth, getting to that stage to be listed. And now they're really trying to reap the benefits of that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it, like Morgan said, go to $50 short term, and then long term could easily go to sort of 100 plus. But anything higher than 100, it would be really, you'd just be getting a ballpark figure, really. I think it'd be pretty
they'd
difficult.
have to really be killing it.
Yeah, that would be it. Obviously, the positives of it is just everlasting, really. Obviously, with Palantir being sort of similar to Black Sky of being sort of the baby of ARK Invest, they keep doubling down the amount of shares they're buying in them. We saw there was another share sort of lockup, which was released for some executives on Friday. Since then, there wasn't a change in the stock price on Friday, and it was at 0.5% after hours. So I think even a lot of the executives and employees at Palantir know this is bound to go up. It is a high growth company with a lot of potential.
Funny enough, one of the co-founders was saying all the weak hands need to sell their shares. He said he wants to get rid of them. So he's looking for long-term investors, and that's what he said in his interview.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of investment this is. It's a long-term hold.
Yeah, it's a long-term hold. You got to really believe in it. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the insider trades, even, I mean, not necessarily that they can even time their trades because there's regulations around that. They can't, if they put in an intention to sell, it's going to happen on a random day. They can't really time it. But yeah, you're not really seeing that huge selling activity from the insiders anyway. I think it's natural that they want to sell some of their shares
every time. Obviously, with the lockup period, you see in most companies, you don't know their situation, whether they're buying a new house, their mortgage, buying a new car, what price they got in. So, when someone sells 1 million shares, it might sound a lot to your general sort of public shareholders, but to them, they might have another 5-6 million shares. So,
and that
and it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's what I think. And obviously, with a lot of these, when you're told you can't do something, and then all of a sudden you can, it's like, I'll just sell a bit. Or there's always going to be people bound to sell some shares for different reasons. That everyone has their own reason, but I don't think you can ever really read into too much insider selling, really.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the selling, right, is coming from people who started with the company. And Palantir has a history of low salary. They probably gave stock options to these people as some kind of compensation, and then they're just cashing in a little bit. So,
that's it. I think I was also reading, obviously, that they've got the Gotham and the Foundry platform, and they reckon it was a $63 billion market for Gotham and a $54 billion market for Foundry. So it's huge market potentials for their programs, and obviously they've essentially designed the Gotham and Foundry solutions, which can be applied to so many different situations. So obviously the tech and the knowledge is there. It's just how many things can they apply it across.
Yeah.
That's it.
Do you see yourself joining them anytime, Jord?
Myself joining, as in terms of working there?
Yeah.
I wouldn't really call myself a data scientist personally. It's not my strongest suit, but I've heard good things about the company themselves, just that they don't pay a lot particularly, yet they still seem to pull in talented people. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well, they're the trending sort of Silicon Valley-esque company, just because I think obviously the hype and things behind them. To have Palantir on your resume is a pretty good thing to have, to be honest.
I think it's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the best
trading
products, I mean, we all know that the best products come out of a problem. So when there's an actual problem that needs to be solved, there's a product that's created to fix it. In this case, PayPal had a lot of fraudulent transactions that were losing a ton of money, and they came up with a solution to fix that problem. And just so turns out that there's a lot of mainly government organizations that have similar problems, that also are willing to pay quite a bit to cover. You know, well, basically they're saving a lot of money, so they're willing to pay a portion of what they're going to save back to Palantir.
Yeah. They got a great team, they got great tech, and they're getting more and more contracts every month. So obviously for our Patreons, which we'll put the link below for anyone who wants to check it out, we'll know obviously we're in this, and obviously we can see this being a 2x trade.
Yeah, easily. But short term, really 2x, isn't it? Long term could be huge, but it's hard to predict at the moment based on revenue figures and the market, really. But the software companies in general, obviously we're in a bit of a software resolution where anything to do with space software, obviously you've got electric vehicles, which obviously a lot of programming things go into those. Anything to do with programming seems to be sort of the stock at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much summarizes everything.
I think that pretty much, that summarizes my feelings as well about Palantir. I mean, you got to wait and see what happens. But I'm thinking right now, I think I'm the only one out of the three of us that is not in Palantir, or
I'm
not
definitely
yet. Yeah, not yet, but I will probably see how this week goes.
Yeah, that's it. Well, there's certainly a dip at the moment worth buying, really. Obviously, I bought in at a dip, and obviously the problem is at the moment you don't know, because of the treasury and things like that, how things will go. So when I bought in, it was looking like things were starting to recover, and then
it's so difficult.
It dropped again slightly. But
you've obviously got the stimulus package, which is just coming in America, and the ratio of people putting it into a stock market was 50%. You know, so there should be money going in, but it's a very difficult time to make assumptions with trading at the moment.
I think anything to do with the treasury, whether they put interest rates up or whether they put interest rates down, the market always goes down, just because people are nervous.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. Well, it just seems to go down no matter what. Obviously, we saw it at the start of before COVID. Everyone got nervous. The market crashed when they changed inflation rates, and now they've changed them sort of back. People have got nervous again, and the market's crashed. So I think we'll see a good recovery over the next few weeks. But obviously, on average, the market takes sort of, for a crash this big, it'd be sort of 40 to 50 days, is what a lot of people are saying. So I think we've just got to wait and see how well it does recover.
The sentiment changes. But when it changes, it's more often than not like the train's already gone and people are just going, "Oh, I'll wait for the next crash," and it doesn't come.
Better to get in early than never. So
I mean, we're overdue a crash, I think, as well. Obviously, the COVID crash was quite big, but it wasn't huge.
And it also rebounded quite fast.
Yeah. Well, the problem is a lot of the stocks weren't being traded based on their valuation. They were just being traded because of the hype. So obviously with this crash now, we'll see a lot of these stocks, the ones that do go up, will actually be traded properly. Not be a Wall Street bets trade.
Fingers crossed. We can bring some sanity back to the markets. Who knows?
Well, I've seen it seems to be a hot topic with the Wall Street's bets followers. and things like that. Obviously, I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, this will be the next sort of thing that basically investors, obviously you call them Wall Street bets followers, but essentially it's just people that follow the hype of a stock. So probably bought into CCIV, probably bought into GameStop, probably bought into AMC, and like it is obviously because this is PLTR is fast becoming mainstream media stock news. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same effect here. Obviously, not as much as GameStop because that was just ridiculous, but it will go up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I was watching some video. I think it was a Bloomberg video or something. And one thing that caught my eye almost instantly, I was like, "Huh, they're talking about Palantir." Like that, it's actually when they're talking about markets being volatile, the Palantir stock ticker comes up and they're talking about it. So, I mean, yeah, I think like when there's hype, when there's a lot of hype, I tend to just like step back a bit and stay away. But it's a weird balance because it's like a good product, it's a good team, it's potentially like a very, very profitable company. But then you're like, on the other hand, there's so much hype.
That's it. And revenues
How do you
do
balance it?
keep going up. I mean, I did see that, and obviously they went up from around 300 million to 322 million on their target for last quarter. So it shows that they do continue to perform. I think they're about 277 at the end of December. So they do keep continuing to grow, and it is spread out the income across a lot of their customers. It's not just one primary source, which is always good to see. Obviously, when you spread your income, you're spreading the risk as well. So it is really good to see, to be honest. So I think it's
why we're in it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we wouldn't be in it otherwise. Obviously, we're not suggesting you get in it because this is for entertainment.
You're being super entertaining.
Yes. Yeah, I hope you find this entertaining. But I think that pretty much summarizes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching the Wealth Project. We hope to see you along to our next video on YouTube. Stay tuned for more. Thanks.